Good afternoon. This is your Tropical Atlantic Marine Weather Briefing for Sunday, October 26th. It's valid for the next 5 days through Thursday, October 30th. I'm Jeff Lewitsky, a lead forecaster at the National Hurricane Center. The major hazard and story this week is Major Hurricane Melissa, which is forecast to cause life-threatening and catastrophic flash flooding and landslides in portions of Jamaica and southern Hispaniola through midweek. Also, swells generated by Melissa are expected to affect portions of Hispaniola, Jamaica, eastern Cuba, the Cayman Islands during the next several days, and these swells are likely to cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions. In addition, a strong cold front will usher in fresh to strong winds and rough seas in the Gulf of America later this week, with gales possible off Tampico and Veracruz, Mexico Wednesday, as well as increasing winds and seas in the Atlantic with this cold front. Here's the latest information on Hurricane Melissa as of Sunday afternoon, moving very slowly to the west, eventually forecast to move northwest, north, and then to the northeast later this week while accelerating later this week, impacting portions of Jamaica, eastern Cuba, Hispaniola, Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and eventually nearing Bermuda later this week. Again, the main story here is the catastrophic and life-threatening flash flooding in addition to prolonged periods of tropical storm and hurricane force winds with a very slow movement near or over Jamaica. Looking at the tropical weather outlook, thankfully we only have Major Hurricane Melissa with no other systems being monitored for tropical cyclone formation. Here's a look at the winds and waves as of this Sunday morning and afternoon. So we do have Major Hurricane Melissa there in the Caribbean Sea near Jamaica. We also have a cold front just off to the northwest of the Gulf of America near the Texas coast. Some fresh to locally strong winds through the Straits of Florida filtering into the southeast Gulf of America, and also fresh to locally strong winds in the southwest North Atlantic through the Bahamas towards Florida there with a tight pressure gradient and an old stationary front. We do have some elevated seas with those winds in the southwest North Atlantic and also over the open northeast high seas waters around 10 feet or so. Going to the 24-hour forecast, we have Melissa nearing very closely to the southern portion of Jamaica. The front in the Gulf has washed out, as has the front in the southwest North Atlantic, which is lifted off to the northwest, with the conditions of winds and seas there in the southwest North Atlantic improving. Still could have some elevated seas in the northeast open high seas waters. Going to 48 hours Tuesday morning, Melissa still near Jamaica here in the Caribbean Sea. We have an area of low pressure off the Carolinas now, bringing in a cold front with some fresh to strong winds just north of our area. Could be also similar conditions just south of 31 north there. And we see some building seas just north of our area with that system. Still some seas to around 10 feet here in the northeastern high seas. Going to midweek, Wednesday, Melissa now forecast to be somewhere near southeast Cuba, nearing the southeast Bahamas, with dangerous impacts there. We have a new cold front ushering in fresh to strong winds in the Gulf of America. Could be possible gale force winds off of Tampico and Veracruz, Mexico here by midweek. And then we have that similar system continuing off into the Atlantic with fresh to strong winds near 31 north ahead of the front there. Associated with that, we do have some building seas now spreading south of 31 north of 10 to locally 12-foot seas, and some elevated seas off in the high seas area still. Thursday morning, your 96-hour forecast, the cold front expected to have progressed potentially through South Florida, approaching the Straits of Florida and Yucatan Channel. Fresh to strong winds across the majority of the Gulf of America, and those possible gales off Veracruz and Tampico should have diminished by this time. Meanwhile, Hurricane Melissa is starting to accelerate off to the northeast, at this time forecast to be just northeast of the Bahamas or southwest of Bermuda. Some fresh to strong winds with the front off to the northwest of Melissa also filtering into portions of the Atlantic, and an old cold front out here could bring some fresh to strong winds along 31 north. Lastly, for the 120-hour forecast Friday morning, the cold front is moving through the southwest North Atlantic here and helping to accelerate Melissa off ahead of it, Melissa this time could be near Bermuda, and the winds behind the cold front should be diminished now in the Gulf of America to mainly moderate, and potentially increasing fresh to locally strong off of eastern Nicaragua and the Caribbean Sea, and mainly moderate to fresh winds behind it in the southwest North Atlantic. The other front over the open Atlantic is also bringing some fresh to strong winds into our area here with some elevated seas, and we see some trades picking up to around fresh here, building seas to 10 feet due to a tightening gradient. In summary, the main hazard this week is Major Hurricane Melissa with the catastrophic, life-threatening flash flooding landslides possible there and associated dangerous swells. Also watching a strong cold front moving into the Gulf of America with gales possible off portions of Mexico there in the southwest Gulf, and increasing winds and seas in the Atlantic as well. This has been your Tropical Atlantic Marine Weather Briefing. The next briefing will be issued by Thursday, October 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Remember, you can always get the latest information at hurricanes.gov/marine and hurricanes.gov for the latest information on Melissa. Stay safe.